Okay, this is English 201, week 7, part 6. Cool, so we're still thinking about this story. So, and then the story ends with, and now before he dies, all his experience condenses into one question, a question he has never asked. He beckons to the guard, meaning he calls him over. Every man strives to attain the law. How is it then that in all these years no one else has come here seeking admittance? So that's another detail about the law, that he says it should be accessible to everyone and that it's something that everyone wants. Everyone strives to attain it. So whatever's in that building is something everyone on earth is looking for, and he's come here to get it, and he thinks he should be able to just be let in to get it, and this guy won't let him in. So you put that in your mind and you keep it floating around in there while you're thinking about metaphor, and it's going to sort of help you out. You are insatiable, meaning the guard tells him he's insatiable, meaning you just keep wanting stuff and wanting stuff and wanting stuff. This is also ironic because the guy just wants one thing, to get in. And if he got in, I think he would be satisfied. But the guard is like, I can't believe you still want things. Like, of course he does. Irony. His hearing has failed, so the guard yells into his ear. No one else but you could ever have obtained admittance. No one else could enter this door. This door was intended only for you. And now I'm going to close it. It's kind of an amazing ending. Something has gone very wrong, but it's hard to understand what. It's obviously, it's some kind of magical parable storyland where there's a magical door that's just for one person. That already tells you this is not a realistic story. So asking what does the guy eat and where does he go to the bathroom are not, those are realistic questions that don't match what's going on in the story. But what we know about the story is that something has gone really wrong here, because if the door was intended for him, he should have been able to get in. Because it's his door. So now, and that's it, and the story's over. So now it's up for the reader to think about what the hell the problem was. And I think as a reader, you're left with two possible solutions. They are very different solutions, and I have no idea which one is the right one. It's just something for you to think about. Either, it feels like someone is at fault. So either the guy from the country screwed something up, or the guard did. Now, a lot of my students, especially those who were raised in America, America is a land where whatever happens to you, we blame on you. So if you're not happy, it's because you don't have the right attitude. And if you don't have enough money, it's because you didn't work hard enough. And if you're not successful, it's because you're not trying. And right, that's the idea. Because it's what happens when you live in a country where rich people have a lot of money and they tell people they deserve it. And they're like, I worked hard for this money. When actually, if you think about it, they probably just, 60% of American wealth is just inherited from older people. So like, did they work hard for it, or did they just like inherit it? Even like, I'm going to go off on a little tangent now. Batman and Iron Man. Everybody loves Batman and Iron Man. But it's worth pointing out, where did their money come from, Batman and Iron Man? Did they work really hard for their money? No. Their dads were super rich, and the kids inherited it. That's why it's so weird when you see Dark Knight Rises and Iron Man 1. Because both stories involve dudes who did not make money themselves, but inherited money from their parents. Their money gets stolen, and they're fighting hard to get the money back. And Batman, in Dark Knight Rises, the specific way that Batman fights hard to get the money back is by punching homeless people in the face. Go watch the movie. Tell me that's not true. And it's crazy because they want me to pay money for a movie ticket to cheer for rich people who did not earn their money but was just given to them to get their money back. And who's making the movie? Well, Batman's made by DC, which is owned by Warner Brothers, which is owned by AOL Time Warner, and Iron Man is owned by Marvel, which is owned by Disney. So the two of the largest companies on the face of the planet, run entirely by rich guys, have given me stories about rich guys who lose money that they didn't earn it in the first place, and they want me to cheer for rich people and say, ooh, I hope these rich people who didn't even make this money get their money back. I hope Batman punches enough homeless people in the face so that he can retrieve his money. Whew. Yikes. Okay, anyway, I mean, I like these movies, but sheesh. You want to talk about a metaphor? Ugh, I feel like Batman and Iron Man are metaphors for the rich guys that own the companies, Disney and Warner Brothers, Time Warner, AOL. Sips tea. So something's gone wrong. So for a lot of my students who are, there's an interesting class debate to be had here. For a lot of my students who are born in this country, they think the thing that has gone wrong is this guy isn't trying hard enough. So I have a lot of my students who will say at this point, hey, professor, this guy just waits. If he should try. Like, if he, what if he gets intimidated by the guards, and the guard says there's even more dangerous guards inside, that he should just rush the door. He should rush past the guard and get in there and get what's his. Because at the end, it turned out this was his door. So maybe if the guard scared him, but if he had just not been so scared or done it anyway, even while if he'd been a little braver, he could have fought past the guard or pushed past the guard or broken in there, and he could have really done more. Also, the guy bribed the guard, and that's like bribing is immoral behavior. So maybe that's what it is, that he did something immoral, and so that's why he couldn't get in. And that's what a lot of my students land on, is it's this guy's fault. Now, since you've read other Kafka, you know the Metamorphosis, you know Kafka's interested in things that are actually nobody's fault. Gregor Samsa gets turned into a bug, and I don't think it's his fault. It just happens. Because another way of looking at this story, the other way of looking at this story, and interestingly, this is a perspective that many of my BMCC students were not born in America, and they were not raised in America. They came here more recently. For a lot of those students, they see something very different in the story. They don't think the man failed. They think the man did everything he could. I mean, waiting is probably the best idea. Being patient is like the only... A very famous person said of Kafka that in Kafka, being patient, it's not a good idea. It's the only idea. What the fuck else are you supposed to do in a Kafka story? You just have to wait. It's not... You can't just like punch somebody and solve your problems like in an action movie. Patience isn't like, we say patience is a virtue. And someone very famous said, patience isn't a virtue in Kafka. It's all there is. So my other group of students say that the guy didn't do anything wrong. He did what he could. He was patient, and he waited very patiently, and that's pretty much his only option. He's not going to be able to force his way past a military force or whatever, these guards. And that bribing was, he tried what he could. He tried to think of something to get in there, and he really did his best. And my students, many of whom are not raised and born in the United States, see something else at work in the story that's the opposite of what the other students see. They look at the story and they say, I think this is a story about a guy who is getting screwed by a system that he doesn't understand. Because many of my students have been very screwed by systems that should be accessible to them, and for some reason are not, because the system is broken or the people running it are corrupt or evil in some way. And it's interesting to me that a lot of my students tell stories about they've had experiences like this guy trying to get something done that should be accessible to all men. And they see the guard as being the one at fault, because the guard is cruel, right? The guard mocks him and says, oh, I'm going to take your bribe. I can't do anything for you, but I want to make sure you feel like you did everything. That's kind of cruel. And the guard lets him wait out there, and the guard waits until the last conceivable moment when the guy is dying to tell him this door was only for him. Should have told him that at the beginning. This perfectly nice man from the country has come to the city where he is getting screwed by bureaucrats. You know what bureaucrats are? Like paper pushers in offices. If you've ever tried, think about health insurance. If you think about the guard being sort of like health insurance or immigration or registering for college or transcripts, or I'm sure you guys have had these kinds of experiences dealing with. And even the courts. So there's two different kinds of stories. Are we going to blame the guy or are we going to blame the guard? And I'll see you in the next video to talk about it.